Hi, my name is Katrina, and we're going to be talking about workforce mobility in the United States. So often when people think about United States and Canada, they think of NAFTA. However, NAFTA has many limitations, especially based on what your profession is, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be working for a Canadian company. However, there is one visa called the L1 visa, which allows managers to send employees to other branches in foreign countries. Before we talk about anything else, let's look at what are the qualifications needed to apply for this L1 visa. So one of the biggest qualifications that's needed for the application of the L1 status is that the Canadian company would have to prove that there's a qualifying relationship between the office in the US and the office in Canada. So that would mean either being a parent company, a branch, affiliate, or a subsidiary. A lot of the times as well, the Canadian company will send an employee to the US to open a new office. However, the qualifications are still the same. They still would have to prove that there's already a physical office in the US. They would have to prove that they are planning on doing business or already doing business with the office in the US. And they would also have to prove that the person being transferred has worked at an executive or managerial level for at least one consecutive year within 3 years of applying for the L1 status. So, for example, if I worked as an executive for the Canadian company in 2014 and I'm applying for the L1 status in 2018, I would not qualify. But if I worked as a manager in 2016 and I'm applying in 2018, it would qualify. So it just has to fall in within that 3-year range. One important document that needs to be signed by the L1 applicant is something called the I-192 form. This is usually done by the employer, has to be signed, and it's a total cost of $960 with that and the L1 status. Now, let's look at what other documents are needed for traveling. So the travel documents required for the L1 visa holder is the I-192 petition form signed by the employer, their passport, and an employment letter stating where they're going to be working, why, how long they're going to be staying there, and just those basic details. So for all employees that are being transferred from Canada to the US in hopes of opening a new office, they're only qualified to stay there for a maximum of 1 year. However, all the other executives and managers that are being transferred to an existing office in the US are qualified to stay for 5 years. After 5 years, they could request an extension of 2 years, which gives them a maximum total of 7 years in the US. I did read a lot about how those visa holders who stay for the full 7 years do eventually apply for permanent residency, so they would have to go through a whole nother process to achieve that status. So for the family members of the L1 visa holder, they are eligible to apply for something called the L2 visa. This basically states that they are the dependents of the L1 visa holder. In the process of doing that, they're going to have to fill out a form called the DS-160 non-immigration visa application, which is only done online and it costs about $160, and they're going to need that for their travel documents, along with a valid passport. For spouse, they're going to need a marriage certificate. For children, they're going to need a birth certificate. And they're also going to need written consent of the L1 holder along with their proof of employment. A lot of the times when the L1 is staying for, more than a year, 2 years, 3 years, the spouse or the children, they're going to want to work. So most of the time they do apply for something called the EAD, which allows them to freely work in the US with no restrictions. So that is one positive thing about getting the L2 visa. When we talk about the L2 status and spouses, let's take a closer look as to what the definition of a marriage is. For thousands of years, the U.S. Supreme Court recognized the marriage as it being between a man and a woman. However, on June 26, 2015, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized same-sex in all 50 states. That being said, same-sex marriage does not affect the L2 visa applicants. After watching this video, you should have some basic knowledge of what it means to have an L1 status. You should understand the requirements, the travel documents, the family L2 status, and the duration of their stay. If you enjoyed watching this video and want to learn more about the L1 status, please see the end of the video for all references. Thanks again for watching.